And it's about that time. Mouthpiece is in, cup check time, hard knocks and cheap shots. Speaking of hard knocks, Triple G, man.
Yeah, last week, Saturday night, big knockout. Triple G hitting a second round knockout over Marco Antonio Rubio. And right now, is there anybody who can stop Triple G?
Well, let's slow down with the hyperbole. I love the guy. Don't get me wrong. He's my favorite fighter out there. Calm down, Mayweather fans. I'm not saying he's the best fighter. I'm saying he's my favorite fighter. So fall back. But the thing is, he hasn't faced the top level competition yet. Right now, he's feeding on a lot of medium-sized and small fish. You got Canelo out there. You got Cotto out there. Those two are probably going to fight Cinco de Mayo weekend, and both of them are already kind of leaning towards facing Golovkin. He's starting to become table A in the conversation now because he put butts in the seats. There was about 1 million views on HBO. You know, things are starting. 2015 is going to be a huge year for Golovkin.
Yeah, definitely. If I was in his situation, I would start thinking about. I mean, there's the other middleweight title holders right now. The one that stands out the most is definitely Miguel Cotto. That's going to be if Cotto versus Golovkin on the put down the marquee. That's a must-watch fight.
Well, first of all, Cotto has to get past Canelo, and to be honest, there's a lot of money to be made between Canelo and Cotto. The big Puerto Rico versus Mexico boxing rivalry, that's going to make a lot of money in Cinco de Mayo weekend and in Las Vegas. However, the one thing about Golovkin, there's the one name that stands out. You know how people talk about Manny and Mayweather? Yeah, you know what? Screw that. I want to see Andre Ward versus Golovkin. I think that's going to be the fight that really is going to define both of their careers. Both excellent fighters. That's the fight I really want to see. But in the meantime, I think Golovkin should go out there and make his money and feast on Canelo and go feast on Cotto.
And moving on to back into the UFC, Ronda Rousey now booked to fight against Kat Zingano and
Kat Zingano. I'm looking forward to this fight because Kat Zingano was the #1 contender till she got hurt during training. She's had some personal issues, personal dilemmas that she's had to deal with. She looks like she's back, and she's going to be an excellent matchup. I think she's going to be a tough matchup for Ronda. I still think my future ex-wife pulls this off.
And on this, I mean, right now, Rousey has been gaining so much, attention right now, especially over the last year. This is really one of those blossoming periods where she became, just from she's taking that transition from just being a star in her sport to possibly, a breakout. Cross mainstream type of stars.
She puts butts in the seats, and in the fight game, that's very important. People are gonna watch her, and that's considering that the UFC's had a little issues right now, the numbers have dipped slightly as far as pay-per-view. They're losing a lot of their headliners. I mean, they have her as a co-main event with John Jones. That's gonna be a sick card right there. Both of those are moneymakers for the UFC. But yeah, she's becoming a mainstream star now. I'm hoping that she doesn't, go in Hollywood thing. We saw how that worked out for Lennox Lewis. I'm hoping that doesn't affect her fight game. But Kat Zingano's no slouch. I think this is going to be a great fight. Again, she's been sitting at #1 for a while. She's finally healthy. She's going to prove to be a challenge. I think Rousey pulls it off. The fight that everyone really wants to see, even though she's not signed, is against Cyborg. We'll see how Cyborg does in December, fighting for Invicta FC. That's really the fight. You know how everyone talks about Mayweather and Pacquiao in UFC, the women's division? That's the fight everyone wants to see, is Cyborg versus Rousey.
Well, either way, Ronda versus Zingano is going to be definitely one to watch. And moving on to the WWE news, Hell in a Cell coming up this Sunday, and right now on the marquee for around 7,700, whatever, is Cena versus Orton here.
Well, I don't know. As we were talking about in the Hard Knocks podcast, an article that are coming out soon. I wouldn't assume it's gonna be Orton versus Cena in the main event, like the last match. I think they might throw the curveball and give it to Ambrose and Rollins, and this would be the appropriate time. I think they're perfectly made for a Hell in a Cell match, even in this PG era. They made that lumberjack match when everyone was trashing that fight. They made it work. I think they're gonna make Hell in a Cell work. I think it's gonna be a slobber knocker, to quote good old JR.
Prediction-wise, now Cena versus Orton, who do you think goes on?
It seems like they're setting up Cena versus Brock again for the Rumble. To be quite frank, I want to see Orton versus Brock. You know what? Let's go with the curveball. Yeah, I realize that they want to set up, Orton versus Rollins. It's looking like the heel turn, but Screw it. I'll go with the shock. I'll go with Orton.
Yeah, I would think it would have to be Orton at this point because really Cena versus Brock, we've seen this dance before. I mean, we kind of know how
it's probably going to happen though. It's probably what's going to happen.
But you know, Orton was floated around 2 years ago at when they were setting up the whole Triple H angle as one of those guys who they wanted to book against Brock Lesnar. And this is a one fight that really hasn't happened yet, and I think it's a fight that kind of needs to happen at this point. I mean, the danger is I'm not so sure if Orton's really works as a face. I think he works better in his heel shtick. But at this point, I think it might be just worth the sacrifice of only to see a big time matchup like this.
I think it can work. It's not, we're not old school wrestling where it's like you had the clear cut Hogan with the yellow and red, or he had to be the real good guy. It's one of those things where you can be that mean-spirited face, and that's what he's going to end up being. It's just really tweaking some certain nuances. I think it can absolutely work. What I think is going to steal the night is Dolph Ziggler versus Cesaro. 2 out of 3 pinfall match. I think they're going to put on an epic. I don't care if it's going to be a 5-minute match. I don't care if it's going to be a 10-minute match. I think that's going to be the match to watch out for.
Yeah, definitely. When you got two guys who obviously know what they're doing in the ring. Ziggler, I think he, any match that he's in, it's pretty much usually he puts on a 5-star, 4-star classic. You're going to get some that great out of him. And Cesaro's ring work is extremely solid.
Underrated, impeccable. I wish this guy would get a bigger push, but.
Well, Hell in a Cell this Sunday. Let's see how that whole thing plays out. And that wraps up this edition of Hard Knocks and Cheap Shots. Remember, tune in next week for more. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and to continue the conversation, remember to log on to LatinPost.com. I'm John Paul Salamanca, this is Em Molina, and we are punching out.